For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for more updates.
Hello and welcome to Strat News Global. I'm Nitin Gokhale. In this special broadcast, I'm joined by Minister Hardeep Puri, who holds two important portfolios, petroleum and natural gas, and urban development and housing in the Union Cabinet, and someone who's under constant public scrutiny for the two portfolios that he holds. Welcome to this program, Minister, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on your program.
So let me start with urban development and housing, only because now I think after the Central Vista opening, the next event that everybody is looking forward to is perhaps the new parliament and new office complex that is going to come up. Give us some updates on that project.
Central Vista is a term that is used to describe the project in overall terms. I won't take too much of your time, but the project in and of itself is a very bold and ambitious and something that is designed to serve the governance architecture of the country for the next 200 years, maybe even longer. Let me recall that the current governance architecture, I literally mean architecture in the physical sense.
Yes.
This was conceptualized sometimes in the early part of the last century, I think around 1906 or so.
True.
When the imperial power then was looking at a seat for governance in Delhi, and what is now Rashtrapati Bhavan, North Block, South Block,
Absolutely.
the Parliament, which was designed to be the legislative assembly of a colonial power.
Sure.
Now, I don't remember the exact date. Probably construction started late 1919 or 1920 or thereabouts.
True. After the First World War. Yeah.
Exactly. And the idea of an independent country, sovereign independent country, an idea which fructified in 1947, was not even in the range of consideration.
Sure.
1919, etc. If you recall, many of our prominent leaders who acquired even greater fame actually were advocating India helping the British war effort.
Right. They did, in fact, during the Second World War. Yeah.
Even
the first also. Yes,
even
of
the
course.
First World War.
Yes.
So you were technically a colony for all intents and purposes.
Exactly.
And the national movement, which delivered freedom, and I always said it was a freedom struggle.
Right.
Because, sometimes you end up using terminology which betrays the bias in the writing. Independence is not something that was gifted to.
No, it was snatched.
And to say there was a proper independence movement which was built up. If at the end of the day the colonial power decided to seize control, there are many contributing factors.
Right.
I think one of them, if you look at history in perspective, was a naval mutiny.
Sure.
There were other factors. And the fact that an entirely new experiment in the art of mass mobilization arose in the form of Shri Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who was able to identify with a popular cause,
Sure.
able to gather people,
Right.
and build a mass movement, but do it within not structures which are revolutionary, which leads to violence. Some violence took place, but evolutionary in terms of a mass consciousness building up.
Quit India
That
movement
started
was
around 1919 or so.
Yeah,
But
sure.
when the parliament building or the this thing was done, it was not there.
Not
It
there.
was not there. It came through the Khilafat
Much
movement
later,
and
yeah.
other issues.
True.
Now, 1947, we become an independent country.
Absolutely.
And I've always marveled at the fact, why did it take so long for the leaders of modern India to firstly acknowledge and then to do something about producing, buildings where the seat of government could function from? I have two simple points.
Right.
One, our population is increasing.
Of course it
There
is.
is limitation or the delimitation embargo.
Yes, of course.
In 2026, the size of your
Legislature.
of
Parliament.
your lower house,
Yes.
which is in 500
43 right now.
exactly,
Yes.
it will go up to, I don't know, 700 something.
Possibly.
Yeah, with all the twists and turns and the scrounging on space and putting in chairs where they should not be, and making the place more and more cramped, you will not be able to accommodate 776.
Right.
So you obviously have to think of the next 50, 100, 150, 200 years. So this project is about that.
That's how. Yeah.
The first segment of that was Kartavya Path,
Yes.
which, the people who are associated with the project and we often reflect, we have been for a long time. And what are the questions which anyone associated with a project like this keeps asking themselves is, will the project be accepted by the people?
Right. And will it stand the test of time?
Yeah. So I think my response has been fairly simplistic. I said the proof of the pudding is in the eating. When I saw on the 1st of January
Yes.
a footfall of over 250,000, I mean,
Yeah.
acceptance and how.
Yes.
You had to navigate a difficult narrative. There were people who were finding all kinds of arguments that the green cover will be reduced.
Right.
I think some of it, most of it, of that narrative, that attempt at government bashing, was designed in order to create a doubt in people's mind and to try and derail it. How can you be spending so much money on this project when there is a pandemic?
Pandemic
I was
is
trying to explain that we are already manufacturing this thing. These are two
separate issues.
totally separate issues.
Yeah.
What funds are you talking about? Such, astronomical fund. I don't know what the final tendered cost will be.
Yeah.
So the Kartavya Path is the first part. And I think the empirically what stands out and what is now widely accepted is that, because you were not using some of the space there, the water bodies have been rejuvenated,
Yes.
area has expanded,
True.
so much more pedestrian space has been added. I think the green area has gone up by about 30% or thereabouts. And it's been accepted by the people. Next, in terms of sequencing, will be the parliament. Again, I make it a force of habit never to commit myself to a
Deadline.
precise date.
Yeah. Date.
It's not fair.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you are undertaking a huge project. The parliament building was, Bhumi Pujan was done in December of 2020. We're only 2 years from there.
Right.
In the midst of this pandemic, we've got to work.
Sure.
It's being completed at a very fast rate. And frankly, do you remember when Kartavya Path was inaugurated 10 days earlier or 10 days later? Nobody remembers these things. The whole idea is to have it, make sure that the work is done.
Yeah. And it's done to the satisfaction of everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one. The other buildings are also in an advanced stage of this thing. I think the Vice President's
Secretariat.
office and residence is due shortly. I think February. Or
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
There are 3 office buildings. There are 8 central secretariat buildings, 8 or 9. The executive enclave. Again, they are working. Tenders are being issued. So it's work in progress.
Great.
But the second point, which is a more important point, there will be no chaotic zigzags. Like I move on out from this building, go to a temporary place, and then go into that. No, you will move from one place into the final place. And when we vacate this place, the next
Phase
set of
comes
3
in.
buildings
Yeah.
will come up.
Right.
So I think it's being conducted in an orderly manner. Fingers crossed. I think it will work.
Great. So that's of course the flagship program. But let's look at your ministry as a larger picture. And urban development, given what India's urban population is going to be, one statistic where I read was some 46% of India's population will be by 2035 will be in urban areas. That puts huge pressure on the amenities, the infrastructure. How are you coping with that?
I mean, first on the statistics that you use, I think the last census we have is 2011.
Right.
I think you are using figures that by 2030, you will have 40% of India living in urban spaces.
Right.
Now, if you look at 40%, it's not that large as a percentage of population.
But numbers.
No, I'm precisely coming to that.
Yeah.
You know, started in 1947 with 17% on a population base of 350 million.
Right.
My own feeling is that by 2040, it'll be 50%.
Okay.
Now, this has two segments. One is the factors which make for and act as a encouragement for people to move from rural to urban and from semi-urban to urban, from tier 2 and tier 3 cities to megapolises. All those factors are in play because today already the urban space is adding to or contributing to a very large percentage of the GDP.
It does.
And when come 2030 or come 2040, it'll be even higher.
Right.
The infrastructure is coming up. A statistic I'm very fond of dangling around, and I've been doing it for the last 5 years since I became a minister, that McKinsey made an assessment that so much of construction work is going on in India overall, that every year about 700 to 900 million square meters
Space is added.
of urban space is being built, which is the equivalent of a Chicago. Forget about how right or wrong that is. Delhi today should have a population on rough count of about 2 crores,
Yes.
2 crores plus. 1 crore 35 lakhs of those inhabitants will have new homes to live in.
Right.
Now we have four members of the family. It's not 4 homes, it's 1 home.
One home.
But it'll affect 4 people.
Sure.
Urban transport, I'm talking about the metro.
Metros, yeah.
In 2002, you just started in Vajpayee's time. Today
Right.
you have 400 kilometers of a world-class urban
In
metro
Delhi
system
itself.
In Delhi,
Itself.
for the national capital region itself.
Right.
Within the country, you've got about 840 kilometers. We are number 5 in the world, I think. But in the coming few weeks and months, we will move from 5th to 3rd. We will overtake Japan and Korea. Maybe not in that order, but I think,
Yes.
I don't remember the figure.
Those two countries.
Yeah, and you have 840 kilometers or thereabouts of operational metroway. You have 1,039 kilometers of metros under construction, each with deadlines and timelines.
Sure.
There's minor delay here and there, it doesn't matter.
That of
Those
course.
projects are coming. You will then have only China and the United States. United States has 1,056. But by 24, 25, you'll have overtaken the United States in terms of number of kilometers of urban metro. Now, all this and the urban space is related to what the size of your economy is.
Right.
Today, you have a $3 trillion plus economy. By 2024, 25, you'll have a $5 trillion economy. And by the time you're talking about 2030 and 40% of
Sure.
urbanized population,
Yes.
population living in urban,
Right.
you'll be a $10 trillion economy.
Correct.
Now, the $10 trillion economy faces urban issues very differently from an economy which is $3 trillion and which has, per capita incomes which are about $2,000.
Yeah.
China today is $12 trillion, thereabouts. It has a per capita income of what, $10,000 or so?
Yes. 5
Now,
times India's. Yeah.
So, every DDA colony, every one of the group housing societies which came up during the 60s or 70s, 40, 50 years later, they have to be rebuilt.
Yes.
And when they rebuild, you will be able to do it with a much better FAR.
Yes.
Again, straight from memory, I think in the 60s or 70s, the FAR was 1.6. Today it's what, 4 or thereabouts
Right.
in most areas?
Yes.
So obviously, when you have a concentration of people living there, I mean, one I've learned, 5.5 years or so that I've been housing minister, urban affairs minister, cities either expand horizontally and acquire the characteristics of a slum or an informal settlement, or they grow up in scientific, green building with the independent, standalone, energy, sewage
Efficient.
treatment,
Yeah.
and all that goes in a modern city.
Right.
I think we are going down that road.
That road, yeah.
I draw a lot of satisfaction from the fact that when you talk of urbanization, the amount of money expended on all the urban projects during the 10 years between 2004 and 14 was about 1,57,000 crores. I don't have the latest figure, but in the first 8 years, it is 16 times.
16 times.
Now, that is because the Prime Minister has taken urbanization, which used to be viewed as a bit of a challenge. Some people even thought it was a bit of a nuisance,
Right.
because our mental conditioning was
Villages.
in villages, which is, I mean, they
It's
deserve
still there.
attention.
Yes.
But because of the nature of existence, people tend to move from,
They do.
rural spaces to urban spaces.
Right.
And I think it's, my predecessor used to use more ambitious terminology. He called it the urban renaissance. I'm a little more modest by nature, so I use the word urban rejuvenation.
Rejuvenation. Yeah. I think that's a correct appraisal. And where you are getting at is also urban poor are also being looked
Coming
at.
to that, I mean, out of the, you see, the affluent or even the not so affluent, they always have modern amenities. I think the really heartwarming feature of the Prime Minister's program are things like Ha Juggi Wahi Makan. I am now today, I can tell you, the 3,000 flats which he was handed over recently
Right.
in east of Kailash. I mean, look at the look on their faces. You lived in a JJ cluster for
Yes.
40, 41 years. And I had the privilege of being present when the Prime Minister asked one couple, I think they were from Bengal, asked them, how many years have you lived here? They said, 40, 42 saal. How many children do you have? They have one daughter. What does she do? Studying English honors in Delhi University.
There you go.
And now you move from that JJ colony
Into
this
urban
so
space.
the kind of outpouring of genuine gratitude and affection, the letters that we receive from the recipients, the kind of video clips we see. And that's not just here. Even Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana at the urban space,
Yes.
if you combine urban and rural, it comes to about 3 crore sanction.
Right.
If you come to just the urban, it was the demand assessment initially was 1 crore. We raised it to 1 crore 12 lakhs. Now it's 1 crore 22 lakhs. And across all 4 verticals.
Sure. No, so I think, the megapolises coming up, I think 4 cities will become megapolises, Hyderabad, Pune, all those.
I'm also hoping a reverse trend took place.
Uh-huh.
When successful people like Mr. Gokhale do well in their profession, when it comes to settling down, they also go back to where you have serenity. I mean, you in your case go back to
Pune
or
it's
Goa.
no longer Siri, Goa, certainly.
No, I'm just saying, because there has to be
Yeah, I
movement
know.
to and
Movement, to and fro.
Because
Of course.
there is a populating tendency and there is a depopulating.
Sure.
Now, all the efforts that we make
Right.
in terms of magnetic towns and,
Yes.
tearing people away from that.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you have a good transport system
Hmm.
and land values being what they are,
Yes.
it makes sense for you to
Be
work in Delhi
Yeah.
if you have to.
correct.
And live somewhere where you have an efficient system which
Sure.
gets you there in 6-10 minutes.
Absolutely.
I mean, with the kind of New Year, the festivity and the frenzy, I have to go to somewhere in Noida. I would prefer.
Yes,
I have
a metro.
to
No,
take
I saw you taking the
the
metro to
airport.
the airport the other day.
16 minutes.
Yes.
16 minutes.
From Shivaji Stadium to the T3.
To the-
Terminal
almost
3.
inside the terminal.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a wonderful change one has seen, not just in Delhi, but elsewhere. I was in Pune recently. It's a small metro, just a small beginning, but people are looking forward to it, certainly. One of the other final question on this segment I wanted to ask was about green living. Because climate change and also, kind of pollution that cities are facing, I think the smart city concept which has
Smart
been brought
cities
in.
is just 100.
Yes.
But I think the Prime Minister went a step further,
Mhm.
much further.
Yeah.
He designated an entire year as the Green Housing Technology
Exactly.
Challenge Year.
Yes.
So we invited all the major technology providers, owners of technology to come and participate in that exhibition and this thing. We selected out of those 53 technologies, which are all, enlisted by the concerned agencies, then we chose 6 of them for what are called lighthouse projects.
Okay.
So 6 different parts of the country,
Mhm.
these lighthouse projects will produce, some have already produced, 1,000 absolutely green homes. By green homes, which means the toxicity is almost not there. I mean, the least possible. And I'm delighted that the private sector is already following. Now, when you make the transition to green construction, obviously there's a little cost extra.
Sure.
But people are beginning to realize
Right.
the advantages inherent in that process.
Right.
And they will shift.
Absolutely. So, on that note, let me thank you for your time. It's been wonderful as usual. And like we've done in the past, I think this is going to give me a lot of new insights and our viewers a new insights.
Thank you very
for
much.
your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.